But I'd like to welcome everybody out to this nuclear research infrastructure revitalization webinar. This opportunity was released just before Thanksgiving. And we have a few folks here on the call to walk you through this funding opportunity. Then we'll have an open question and answer session afterward. And so I'd like to introduce at this time Tony Farrick, who's our program manager for this infrastructure revitalization program. And Tony will be taking us through an overview of the funding opportunity. So time's yours, Tony.
Thanks, Drew. While we wait for the slides to come up, I just wanted to highlight that for this opportunity, you might have noticed if you've taken a look at the documents that we've changed it from the FOA format, so funding opportunity announcement, to NOFO, so notice of funding opportunity. And that's been a DOE-wide initiative. So with that came a big template change. So you'll see that the way the documents look is quite different from last year, but most of the content is still the same. So this should be a refresher for those of you who attended the webinar last year, might have applied or were considering applying last year. But with the new template, there's part 1 and part 2. Part 1 contains the opportunity-specific instructions, and then part 2 contains more general requirements and provisions that can be typically found when applying to DOE solicitations. So we just wanted to throw that out there as a disclaimer, since that might have not been clear when we released the NOFO. So yeah, with that, next slide, please. To start, we'll begin with an overview of the University Nuclear Research Infrastructure Revitalization Funding Opportunity. This NOFO supports infrastructure and the associated research to provide a more holistic approach to U.S. university infrastructure investments and associated research and development capabilities through a consortia-style model that combines physical infrastructure investments with training, student support, and research. The language for this, or the motivation for this opportunity, comes from congressional language that was centered around nuclear cyber-physical protection, new digital technologies in advanced nuclear reactors, and the development and safety assessments of small modular reactors. And it's important to highlight that this opportunity will exclude any activities that involve the planning or construction of new university nuclear reactors. So I just want to highlight that any applications that involve such materials will be deemed ineligible. Next slide, please. Here we'll go a little bit more into the purpose of the opportunity. So the goal is for university-led consortia projects to focus on a goal or capability that will significantly add to the current U.S. capacity to support advanced reactor research and development, education, and workforce development. The projects are intended to revitalize the U.S. capacity for university-led nuclear research and development by establishing and/or improving infrastructure to align with the advanced reactor technologies that are currently being deployed by the U.S. nuclear industry. Also to support innovative combinations of facilities, equipment, and related capabilities, emphasize support for rapid, lower cost approaches that can enable advanced reactor relevant research and development, education, and workforce development. And then lastly, again, I want to highlight that the projects and proposals need to involve a consortia, which can be made of many different types of institutions to maximize the participation and realization of benefits by communities that have historically faced challenges to such access. In the NOFO, you'll see that applicants are encouraged to describe how their project will specifically support disadvantaged and underrepresented communities. Next slide, please. So what is a disadvantaged or underrepresented community? The exact definitions are posted and defined in these executive orders that are listed on the slide. And you can click on the links at the bottom of the slides to learn more about what these definitions are. But we wanted to provide some brief definitions for you all. So disadvantaged communities are overburdened by pollution and underinvestment in housing, transportation, water and wastewater infrastructure, and healthcare. And a community qualifies as disadvantaged if the census tract is above the threshold for one or more environmental or climate indicators, and the tract is above the threshold for the socioeconomic indicators. Underrepresented communities is a context-dependent term and refers to populations sharing a particular characteristic, as well as geographic communities that have been systematically denied a full opportunity to participate in aspects of economic, social, and civic life. If relevant to your application, applicants are encouraged to explain how these types of communities will benefit from the successful execution of the proposed project. Next slide, please. Here we'll go through the format and eligibility requirements of the infrastructure revitalization opportunity. So the award size is up to $6 million, where cost sharing is encouraged but not required in this NOFO. The period of performance is up to 4 years. We're targeting to make one award for this opportunity. And then some of the major eligibility requirements are listed below. So this is open to all U.S. colleges and universities as the prime applicant. It requires a multi-institutional consortium. A minimum of 50% of the requested funds must be used for physical infrastructure and equipment. Non-university collaborators in composite can have no more than 20% of the overall budget requested. And then again, as I mentioned, cost sharing is encouraged but not required. And another caveat I wanted to add was that if you propose cost share in your application, you will be bound to it if your application is selected for award. Next slide, please. Here we have some information about the review process. For the full application, there'll be a 25-page limit for the technical volume. The application will require detailed budget justification, and vendor quotes will be required for physical equipment exceeding $10,000, which is a change from last year. Last year, I believe that number was $5,000, so that has been increased to $10,000 for vendor quote requirements. The full applications will be evaluated by a panel of experts, which will include multiple technical peer reviewers evaluating the technical merit. And the criteria breakdown is as follows. 35% will be for the technical merit relative to revitalizing nuclear research infrastructure. 35% will be for execution of the proposed method or approach. 30% will be for the capabilities of the applicant team, the risks and the mitigation strategies that will be applied, and then the team experience. And then I want to highlight that there are some bonus points that will be given for diverse team reviews. So up to 3 points will be given for applications that consider significant MSI, HBCU, or TCU participation in their applications. Next slide, please. Here is the summary of the important dates associated with this opportunity. So as Drew mentioned, the NOFO was released on November 20th, right before the Thanksgiving break. The overview webinar is taking place today, December 3rd. Full applications will be due about 2 months from now, so February 12th, 2025. The award announcement is anticipated to be made in spring 2025, before the end of May. And then the anticipated award start date is August 1st, 2025. Next slide, please. And then before we open up the floor for questions, I just wanted to highlight the places where you can learn more about the opportunity. So technical questions can be submitted to neap@inl.gov. Procurement-specific questions can be submitted to Andrew Ford. The application site itself, www.neap.gov, will have a transcription of this Q&A from the live informational webinar. And then there are some infrastructure-specific Q&A already posted at the NEAP website. And with that, I'll open up the floor for questions.
Okay, thanks, Tony. CC has put the NOFO link on the chat here, and we'll open up for questions. Meaning, you can either ask those questions on the chat by just putting them in, just typing them in, or you're welcome to raise your hand and we will unmute your video and your mic so you can ask your question in person to Tony. We also have some other folks here, including Nick Case from the any integration office who can answer questions about the application forms, and other folks from DOE. So we'll hold here and take any questions you have. If we do have a break in activity, we'll wrap up this this session. With that, we'll hold for some questions. Don't have any so far. Okay, Karen, we have you first. Karen Kirkland, go ahead.
Okay, thank you. This is Karen Kirkland from Texas A&M University. I have a question on PI eligibility. If the person who wants to be a PI on this proposal is also a PI on, say, the workforce development proposal, or are there any limitations like that?
I believe there are no limitations for this one and other solicitations. But Drew, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, those eligibility limitations are going to be funding opportunity by funding opportunity. So this is a separate opportunity that doesn't have any of the. You're probably thinking of the CINR eligibility restrictions, Karen, and
Yes.
that's restricted just to that funding opportunity.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Yep. Thank you. All right. Ling Fong, we have you next. Go ahead.
Hi, Joe, could you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, we
Go ahead.
can hear you.
Yeah, so I see one message is the application, if that result in duplicating existing capability is not encouraged. So I try to understand this a little bit more. If some capability, maybe it's a similar capability, is already available in other institution, but not in the proposing institution, do you think this will be considered still as a duplicate, or this should be fine?
Drew, do you want to take that question?
Yeah, I'm happy to. Um, Context matters in that situation, and so there may be certain reasons why a piece of equipment having a duplicate piece of equipment at a different institution may be valid. And that's going to have to be described and justified in the application. What we're trying to do with that guidance is make sure that that as we're trying to meet the mission of the funding opportunity and of NE's university program mission, that's really to make sure that we're revitalizing existing infrastructure and creating new capabilities. And the idea there is that we wouldn't be creating the same infrastructure opportunity multiple different times if it's not justified. And so that's really where that language comes from. I hope that's helpful. If you have a follow-up question, happy to take it.
Yeah, so yeah, this is because when university try to create new capability, very likely some capability may be already available at the national lab, correct? So, but just as a university, maybe before in like they try to propose something, could expand the current capability at the university, but kind of overlap some capability at the national lab. This is very likely. But I just thank you for your explanation. I think maybe this help. Yeah, so competition maybe. Yeah, that's still be considered.
And to build off my answer a little bit, maybe I think, in those types of circumstances, there's a lot of good context and justification. If that instrument or that piece of equipment is maxed out from a national laboratory space, if there's certain reasons why access or difficulty of moving samples, or there's a variety of different reasons why there might be a good reason to propose it. But what I would encourage you to do is if that's the case and you feel like, hey, this could be interpreted as duplicative for some reason, that you would clearly outline that for our reviewers and not assume that people will understand, utilization of a specific set of instruments in the lab system or otherwise.
I see. Okay, thank you, Drew. That's helped a lot. Yeah.
All right. We'll keep it open for questions. I have one on the chat. So Tony, next question is: are there restrictions as for citizenship for participating students?
For the students, I don't believe there are restrictions for the citizenship, but do you have anything to add to that, Drew?
No, that's right. We don't have U.S. citizenship requirements for the students. So yeah, that should answer it. Okay, we'll stay open here for questions. Feel free to type them in the chat or raise your hand for me. Next question from chat, Tony, is the award information of last round. I think it was awarded to Purdue University in 2024. Cannot be found on the new NUP website. Can we get this information? Yeah. So I'll take that one, Tony.
Go ahead. Thanks.
As most of you are likely aware now, the NUP website was updated at the end of the fiscal year, and so we have a new website. We're still working out the kinks, especially to be able to get award information on that website. we will, I'll talk with our communications lead and we'll prioritize that piece of information so you all have access to the abstract.
May I have another question?
Yeah, go ahead while I try to fix my my screen here.
Okay. Yeah. Another question is, the FOA mentioned like at least 50% go to infrastructure, correct? So I assume the 50% is for the whole team, correct? Entire team. It's not just for like one institution. Each institution need to meet like 50% this requirement, correct?
Yes, I believe it's for the entire award. 50% of the entire award needs to go to physical equipment and infrastructure.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, this helped me.
Yeah, Karen, go ahead.
Yeah, I have a simple question, a simpleton question. Could you explain what the difference is between an FOA and a NOFO? Why would the PIs be concerned about that other than format of the proposals?
Yes, so from my understanding, it is just the formatting and the semantics, but there's just been a change from using the term FOA, so funding opportunity announcement, to notice of funding opportunity. And it's just been a DOE-wide initiative. So from now on, you'll see that any of the opportunities coming out of DOE will be called NOFOs. So that's just all it is. So I think from your perspective, you shouldn't be concerned with any differences. It would just be applying as the same way that you applied to in the past.
Thank you.
Yeah. So the system will be set up very similarly, but I do want to point out one of the biggest changes is that if you haven't seen the NOFO yet, it's split into two parts. And there's one part that's really the overview information for the funding opportunity, its eligibility requirements, those types of things. And then the second document really focuses more on what your Office of Sponsored Programs is probably interested in from a document requirement standpoint. So the format does look quite different. And some things may be named slightly differently. But as you get into that, if you've applied to our funding opportunities in the past, you should see quite a few similarities. And so I'd encourage you to, like I said, ask questions early and often if you feel like that new template, new terminology is something that you're not understanding. Tony, thank you for your time. Thank you for presenting the information here. Please reach out if you have questions. Thank you all for attending today, and we'll be in touch. Best of luck as you develop your applications. Take care.
Thank you all. Bye.